Welcome to Minions and Misfits, the family-friendly, actual play, off-kilter TTRPG podcast, where instead of playing as archetypal heroes, we assume the roles of common grunts and monsters and misfits. My name is Rebecca, and we are not playing this episode. We are recapping, reviewing, and all the words for what we're doing except for the word that we actually use in the title. We're reflecting on season 3 of Minions and
Minions and Muffin.
Minions and Muffin.
If we ever make it big, we'll have the knockoff podcast Minions and Misfits.
Ship it.
Minions and baking Muppets. Podcast Minions and Muffins.
Oh.
Muffins and Misfits.
Muffins and Misfits. But I am here along with my fellow co-hosts, Sam.
Hey.
Cam.
Yo.
And Dillon.
Again with the yo theft.
Hold again.
Got him.
It's the communal yo.
Nah.
Well,
he's got a full lockdown on that yo.
Should have copyrighted it sooner.
TM.
Well, for this season's, I'm gonna remember the proper word, even if I have to scroll through our podcast. Retrospective. For this season's retrospective. For this season's retrospective, I will be asking us some questions to talk about the season we just finished and share some thoughts that we have about it and where we'll be moving on to next.
Well, given that you were the heart of this season, that seems appropriate.
Well, thanks.
Apropos.
Well, let's talk about the game. First question. Did you have fun?
No.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely not. No, I loved it, actually. It was a spectacular system.
That's actually what I want to ask us about first, specifically, is what were some things you really enjoyed about the system, Babes in the Woods 2E?
So I really enjoyed it. I think I'll kick it off.
Yeah, DM should. Yeah.
Well, I was reading the reviews and listening to reviews before we played it, and they kept saying that it was very like you got to go inside the mind of a child and play it as children, which I was really worried. Like when I read that made me not want to play it because it sounded odd. Like I don't want to be adults who are pretending to be children, but it worked out really well. And I don't know. I liked that there was a really innocent humor about it. I enjoyed the system, and I mean, the artwork in the rule book.
Yeah, pick up this book, guys. It's so beautiful.
Really nice. Super cute.
It is one of those rule books that's worth it.
Huge shout out to Kim Nguyen.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Say that one more time because I cut you off.
Kim Nguyen did the art, so huge shout out to her. Just absolutely rocking it.
But I really like this. I really like the system, and it's very good for world building. And so all props to Adam Voss.
I agree.
I'm very curious to know what the differences were between first and second edition. See how it actually switched out.
For sure. I think the lack of pressure of like there's no death, there's like consequences for your actions, but there's not combat or violence, you know, it's all cartoonish.
We found a way.
It was really nice. Yeah, there's always violence, especially when you're playing kids.
Especially throwing turtles.
Ultimately, we're just grown-up kids. And I think being able to go back to like make it simpler, make it more innocent and sweet is really nice. And like connecting with your inner child, I think is very good and healthy because you still have pieces of that kid inside your noodle and your mush.
Deep inside
maybe
the
your
mush.
steam.
I think there's a cool part of it because we live in such a cynical society where when we play as these kids, that cynicism is gone, and I think that's really cool. Because
we get to roleplay as people who are less jaded than we actually are. Yeah, right. What a concept.
Let's pretend to not be so hurt.
But it's really it's kind of made fun of whenever you're earnest, and I think playing earnest characters is a good exercise. But yeah, I think everyone could do with a little bit less cynicism. But yeah, I think that was probably my favorite part. Is it is a earnest game, not a cynical game, which is very cool. Yeah. What's the C.S. Lewis quote here? He's talking about like there's like a children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story in the slightest. Something like that. I don't know if that's a quote, but that's kind
correct. That's kind of what we were. I mean,
There's
I feel like that's what we approach
that
a lot
adults
of
can
these
enjoy.
with. Yeah, it's like we're not making, we're not making adult content. We're not making kids content. We're just making content that can be enjoyed by all.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the goal with all this.
From a gameplay perspective, I've read lots of Powered by the Apocalypse games, but this is the first time I've actually played one. And I really do like the emphasis that the system and it's all of the games that it spawned has on narrative moves. Like your moves are not just combat abilities, but your moves are things that you do within the narrative.
Yeah.
Which really makes it a perfect system for actual play content because
Because combat is
just
boring.
interlocks so perfectly. Yeah, because combat...
As the
Combat is
final
pretty
of our
boring at
first
the
season
table.
will tell
It's
you.
far worse in an actual play
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go back and listen to the finale for our first season. You'll see how boring combat is.
Just listen to the first half of the Morkborg Halloween episode.
Oof.
I did not finish the finale of season 1, I'm going to admit.
I
I think I
actually
went and listened to the retrospective, though, because I was like, I want to know how it ended.
Skip,
I actually
skip to
just
the end
went
of
back
it. It's
and-
really good. Like that.
yeah, you,
I should do
Skip
that.
past the combat, and or towards the end of combat, because it finishes off pretty
Yeah.
spectacularly.
you gotta hear the song that I wrote for the epilogue.
It's true.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, straight up.
I wrote-
Did I not hear the song?
I wrote
Ah.
I made a goblin parody of The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan and had Sam sing it as Gorfit.
It was excellent.
Ah,
Our finest work,
amazing.
honestly.
We should have that as a separate file on our
On our Patreon.
I mean, we could do Patreon
If
still.
we ever get to that level, we'll see.
if anybody's interested.
Yeah, I really love systems that emphasize failure because
Yeah.
I feel like when you're playing I think D&D falls into this trap. It's like you always want to make that dice roll when you're
Yeah.
playing D&D.
Yeah.
Whereas in these kinds of games, it's like I want it to be good, but like it's always going to be interesting no matter what I roll.
Right. It's written into the rules of the game. The game tells you, like, something happens when you fail the roll. Here's what
Yeah.
happens when you fail the roll. That's one of the best parts about Powered by the Apocalypse games is that there's always a built-in fail state that keeps the momentum going instead of just grinding it to a halt.
Yeah, like whoops, you did bad.
I was actually going to say the same thing, Dylan, of like it was cool to be re-listening and realize there were times where I used my wish to get a partial success because that
Yeah,
was more
yeah.
fun and more interesting.
Because the conditions
But with,
are
like,
different, yeah.
Yeah, but with like Baldur's Gate 3, playing that or other D&D-esque games, if I have a chance to re-roll, I want to succeed.
Yeah, I will save scum until I get the
Oh,
the
yes.
nat 20 that I need to get this to pass this check.
Yes, yes.
Although
And alas, we cannot do that in actual TTRPGs. Did you have a thing you were going to say, Sam?
it was kind of a tangent. I think I've been thinking about this a lot, but with like D&D, one of the cool things is nothing to do with the game, so I'm really sorry. But it's one of the because D&D
We're
gets
already
so
off topic.
specific, that can be annoying in some instances. But then the moments where your specificity hits its niche, those moments are always golden.
Super satisfying.
Yeah, and it's like
The
it's this-
situations that the writers thought of.
exactly. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
back to the good stuff.
Well, let's go to another question about our game.
This one was sent in by
What
us.
are some things you really enjoyed about your character and about other players' characters?
Who wants to start?
I've got to think about this. I should have thought more about my
You
answers
think,
to my
you
question.
think.
Well, my number one favorite thing about Puddles is that I got to do his voice, which is
Yes.
my honestly one of my favorite voices ever is the droopy dog voice. And I like the point where I started as like what is one of the hallmarks of being a sentient being, and that is anxiety. So what happens when an animal gains sentience? Well, the first thing that happens is crippling anxiety. And then he really got a chance to grow from there,
Yeah.
as he was kind of like, because Muffins is a child and Jake was literally born yesterday.
Yeah.
That makes Puddles the de facto adult in the room, and so he kind of had to overcome his misgivings and overcome his hesitancy and his anxiety to kind of be the the leader of the group in a way.
Yeah. I love how he kind of is a parallel to the Cowardly Lion of this
Yeah.
fearful sentient animal
Yeah.
that grows so much. And I think in the first episode of the season, he was also kind of de factoing to Muffin's, like, you're so smart, Muffin. Like, Muffin knows, and Muffin was often protecting him, but by the end, he really has become, like, this almost, like, a mentor to Muffin, and someone that this little girl who's been just kind of fending for herself for forever can rely on.
Yeah.
Same with Jake. Like,
Jake
in the
was a really
relying
tough
on
one
part.
to play.
The craziest part, though, is that it happened so gradually that I did not even realize that it was happening.
That's
Don't you
perfect
love
then.
that?
Yeah.
I think probably
Natural.
what makes him such a great character in my mind. It's like I played him so well that I didn't even know that I was doing it. As far as things I like about the other characters, like Jake was just an excellent source of humor as the archetypal, like I said, born yesterday, just like...
Yeah.
But then as a source of jokes about I was born yesterday, but even I know that this is this.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing I was difficult with him, because I was trying to balance a naivety, but also, like, not making it so frequent and constant that it becomes annoying.
Yeah.
So, like, I had to bake in some things like, okay, there's some things he just naturally understands and innately knows,
Right.
but just for function's sake.
I think that's part of the magic of the Maywood, too.
yeah, it's
Like, I
tough.
don't... If he was just, like, a really stupid toy, that would kind of... I don't know. That would kill a bit of his story arc, whereas in reality, like, he was given a specific kind of sentience. I think one of my favorite things about...
I had a task, and that's what helped.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about the characters is I didn't even intend to do this. This is on you guys, but I really feel strongly that everyone's arc ended on a really great note at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was spectacular.
I don't think we could have planned it better.
No.
And I'll tell you, none of that was planned.
None.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't even know mine was happening.
It just kind of occurred. Yeah, muffins, I think, or muffins, we never really,
Muffin,
who knows?
singular.
It started as
Moon
Muffin.
Muffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we kept misnaming them constantly. But Muffin was definitely like the heart of the group.
Absolutely.
And that storyline really made it something special. That being said, Puddles is still my favorite character.
It's amazing.
Yeah, Puddles
I
ended
want
up
to
being
get a stuffed Puddles.
he ended up being the breakout star of the season, I think.
So
But
good.
I agree. Muffin is definitely the main character of the season,
Yeah.
and I think Rebecca, you did a great job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Thanks.
a lot of people would probably shy away from like being so blatantly the main character of something, but you really owned it. And
Owned it, yeah.
like the emotions that you put into Muffin were just A+.
Yeah.
Couldn't
If I remember correctly, Sam had that pretty intentionally when we were talking about this season beforehand. Is that right, Sam?
We knew from the get-go that she would be working with the Rot. And I think, there's also part of it where with Puddles being a turtle and you being a talking toy,
Whatever I
Yeah.
am, yeah.
she's the only one who's trying to get home. Esther wants to get home, but she doesn't really know it because she's a little baby. And so she is the most human part of the story, in part because she's one of the most flawed. Like, she doesn't even just have a personality flaw, she has like a character flaw. She is doing something wrong. And it's that redemption. Because remember, with Minions and Misfits, a lot of the time, whenever I'm involved in the story, it's about if they're going the wrong way, they're either going to keep going that way or they're going to turn around. There's either going to be damnation or redemption. And so part of it was finding her redemption, which I thought was really cool. But I don't know, I really liked it because it did feel like Muffin was the main character, but I really felt and I really liked how it didn't end with Muffin being the star. It ended with all three of you doing what you
everybody
had to do.
had a moment of greatness.
Exactly. In fact, and Muffin could have done it without them. Like, it's very much like Samwise Gamgee carrying Frodo. It's like, yeah, Frodo may have had the emotional burden, but he wouldn't have done it without Sam. And that's and it just ended. I don't know. I really couldn't have thought of a better ending. And again, that's not on that. It just happened. It's just part of the magic of the
That's
moment.
collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Think about how far we've come, Mr.
storytelling.
Muffins.
Yeah, with Muffin, there were a couple things I wanted to do with Muffin. I wanted to lean into the fact that she was a child, and like children need to be cared for. We all need to be cared for, but children especially just don't have the tools or the maturity to take care of themselves. So when like she got hurt, she's not thinking about anyone else anymore. She's just
she's
like,
breaking
I
down
need a
immediately.
Band-Aid.
Yep.
Yeah. And like she is hurt by her parents and lost. Like I also wanted to explore just the theme of like being hurt by our parents, even when they're not necessarily doing anything bad, but parents are our first primary caregivers and they are going to fail us. And even when that's, your stay-at-home dad had to go back to work to make ends meet, that still hurts and there's still that loss. And she had this defense mechanism of I take care of myself. But she had to learn to depend on Puddles and on Jake, and then finally she could go home, depend on her parents again with all their flaws. And I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed y'all's characters. I don't know if I have anything new to say. You've already said so many beautiful things about Jake and Puddles. Ugh, just gems.
Do we have a question about NPCs, or should we just talk about them
We
real
do.
quick?
Let's talk about some
good.
NPCs now. I want to know.
Keep
well,
rolling.
first, let me ask you, Sam.
Okay.
Like, what were some of your favorite NPCs, and what was the inspiration behind them?
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Monty Python.
Actually, you know what? No, it wasn't Monty Python. I love Monty Python, but actually, I mean, the main one and my favorite, like if I had to get, like, artwork done,
Top
it
tier.
would be Quentin. I love Quentin.
Yes, Quentin is my
Quentin.
favorite.
It was painfully obvious in the way I ran the game, but I loved Quentin. He was kind of he was, in my mind, he was part of the magic of the Maywood. He was almost like an omnipotent narrator, kind of like a Gandalf figure.
He
Kind
reminded
of like the rooster from the
Robin
animated
Hood.
Robin Hood.
Yeah,
That's exactly
that's how
what
I
I was
pictured
about
him.
to say.
Alan
That's,
Adale.
I mean, all of them are really heavily inspired by Over the Garden Wall. I keep saying Into the Garden Wall. Over the Garden Wall.
That's the
Right
sequel.
into it.
Boom, right?
Bam!
Much
a
shorter,
much shorter story.
But I loved Quentin, and it was really funny. You guys all hated him at first.
Yeah, that was the best. Yeah, that's why we love him.
And that way he had an arc too.
Yeah, but he was very much his inspiration. The inspiration for Quentin was all Conan O'Brien's 1920s voice. Like if this were ever a movie, I would want Conan O'Brien to play Quentin.
Nice.
That's my dream casting. That is my my Alan Rickman as Snape is Conan O'Brien as Quentin. And then I mean there were other obvious ones like Donathan was just straight up Barney
my
Fife.
gosh.
Oh, Jonathan.
Love
Yeah.
Donathan.
Like not even inspired by, just was.
He just
Barney.
was Barney Fife. Les. I had to make him in just
That one was fun. That was like spur of the moment.
Yes.
spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, was he totally spur of the moment?
I knew I wanted to incorporate a catfish because one of the influences was Big Fish, which is all about stories in the South, and so I knew I wanted to incorporate catfish because I love catfish. And I love that if we're doing it on a river, we have to have catfish, but did not anticipate it taking that form. But yeah, so that was that, and I was like, "What's a voice that I'm not already doing?" And I was like, "Just weird and slow." Okay. I'm trying to think of other ones. There were a lot of silly voices. I think one of the more special characters to me was Karina. Karina is based off a real life girl who I worked with when I was working in the public school system. And she was just like her character in that like nobody else could stand her. All her teachers were annoyed by her. All her classmates hated her. But she was like it was one of the things where she had to check in with me as one of the teachers at the end of the day, and I'd sign off on stuff. And me and her got along splendidly, and I thought she was the coolest person ever. But nobody else did. And I felt so bad. And she was so wonderful. And I really I really cared about her. And so
Justice for Karina.
yeah, justice for Karina.
We love you, Karina.
Yeah, those are the kids that always grow up to be cool.
Absolutely.
Like after all of the cool kids have petered out in college, she will just be coming into her own as an
Just a
actual
good
cool
human.
adult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just realizing who cares that these
Yeah.
people don't like me. There are people who do like me, and I'll hang out with them.
Absolutely. So Karina, if by some chance you're listening to this, I think you're awesome and you're going to do great things. And then the Ra is really The Rot.
Visceral, real good, real good.
So, I'm not going to give it a whole lot away, since I think one of the best things about a villain like the Rot is the mystery.
Is the unknown. Yeah.
He is based off of the villain in Over the Garden Wall, the Beast, and so there's definitely aspects of that.
Yeah.
I just like to get
which this whole system is heavily inspired by Over the Garden Wall.
In my mind, our whole season was just an homage to Over the Garden Wall.
Which if you haven't watched, go watch
so
it. It's
good.
incredible.
Highly recommend.
It's one of those things that I kind of just have to go back and rewatch once a year.
Yes. It's only like, you can watch it in a day. It's like, a 2.5 hour series. It's great. But I also wanted to kind of give him this oily, kind of too smooth voice. And I don't know.
Mission accomplished.
Thanks to everyone's hard work, I think it all worked out. But it was
so good.
Oh, and then of course, obviously, Boy and Mother.
Yeah.
Yes, boy.
Rowan boy.
Unnamed boy.
Man and Mother.
Mother, look.
Mother. Which, if we're talking about casting, I would definitely have Nick Kroll voice the mother and John Mulaney voice the son.
Nice.
Specifically as their roles in what's the theater
in Oh
production?
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I don't remember how I came up with them. I think that was more just a stupid aside that
Another spur of the
Yeah,
moment.
that's just another goofy ad lib.
That just cracked us up so much it just kept coming.
Your voices this season, Sam, were spectacular.
thank you.
I enjoyed all of them.
Oh,
But something you said. Oh, please go ahead.
I was going to say, we almost left off the most important character who came in at the very last minute, but also left the hugest impact,
Yes!
and that is Sammy the gecko.
Sammy.
Danny.
This was so cute. I couldn't handle it.
Can we get a little bit of that voice one more time, Sam?
why are you crying? Stop it.
I need art immediately.
I can just see him and he's so cute. This is the perfect children's show character.
I just like the idea that he's
I can
this.
just see me like sitting with my child one day, but every time Sammy comes on, my kid's just annoyed because I'm weeping.
This is like the one. Like I would pay a serious amount of money to see this whole season just animated. Like I think it would look really
it'd
cool.
be so cool.
Uh-huh.
If only.
But I like the idea of Sammy of being this like little really adorable, cute animal who's kind of just a turd. Like, because he's kind of just a jerk.
It's just...
Because his whole motivation is the whole time is, can I get her off my log? Like, can I?
Yeah. Just go.
Because I like the idea that, Muffin like wants a therapy session and he's like, I want a nap.
Therapy Gecko says no.
Therapy Gecko has better things to do.
Like lick his eyeballs.
Yeah, I like the reveal that he and Puddles have known each other for years.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
Since
cool.
childhood.
A little glimpse into Puddle's past. But speaking of the past,
smooth segue.
Cam and Dillon, what were some of your inspirations in the character creation process? Like,
Oh man.
that inspired where you went with your character?
Toy Story.
Honestly, mine was pretty much just like bolt out of the blue. Like as soon as I heard the words "talking animals," I was like, "Turtle, droopy dog voice, nailed it. I'm done.
Perfect.
Just throw
Done.
the papers
Did
up
it
in
in
the
one.
air."
So when we started the season, I had the choice of being a toy, a critter, or I believe a wood straw was already off the table. So I was like, I could be one of these two things.
Yeah, per our Minions and Misfits rules, there's also two classes you can play. One's called, is it Little Kids and Big Kids? And there's
Yes.
like normal kids who got lost in the Maywood. And although
Woods child.
Yeah, and Muffin was a woods child, which is a kind of someone who's wandered aimlessly through the wood for a long time and become part of it. So we could not play as like those normal characters. We had to play as kind of weirdos.
Yeah.
So we couldn't play as big or little kids. Sorry.
Yeah.
Continue on.
You're good. That's a helpful explanation. Yeah, that's better than I was going to say. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, toy has a lot of options. And I knew Cam was already working on some sort of good critter. And so when I thought of toys, I was like, okay, I was looking for physicality with the toy. And then I was like, okay. And then I was trying to think of a garbage name because I love garbage names. And I was like, okay, if we have a Jack and the Bajake and the Bach, okay, here we go. We can work with this. But I think Jake really came about because I was thinking just great physical jokes with the spring and the box and everything. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with that. So that's really how he came about.
Nice.
It's physical comedy just built right in.
Yeah.
With Muffin, I already talked about how I wanted to look at, parent pain, but with her name and just like thinking about her appearance, I remember just doing some doodles of a little girl in overalls. And then somehow, I think I had drawn her with curly hair, and I thought about my cousin. I have a cousin who...
Named Muffin.
Who's named Muffin. No.
She got lost
She
in
has
the
a very
woods.
normal name, but she has very curly hair. Her dad is very white, and her mom is Dominican, and she has kind of loose, fluffy curls, naturally.
Ideal.
And as a kid, at school, she would actually get made fun of. They would call her Muffin Head, which I
no.
always thought was ridiculous because one, her curls were adorable, and two,
That's the
muffins
best
are
hair.
awesome. Like, how is that making fun
They're
of her by
literally
calling her
your-
something amazing?
And
They're
Top is
your
the best part
excuse
of
to eat cake for breakfast.
Yeah,
And the top is the best part of the muffin.
exactly. So I was like, I think Muffin is an adorable nickname. Let's
Yeah.
reclaim this for good. And so she got the name Muffin.
Come up with better mocking, kids. Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Dude, up your game.
Seriously.
Mocking her adorable hair with an adorable name. Perhaps it's all just a good analogy for the fact of like, there's not really much worth mocking in a person.
Yeah, just
Not like that.
do you.
Anyway.
Yeah, if you have to reach
Like-
that hard, maybe you should just be doing something else with your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, maybe what people are mocking you for is actually not a
Kind
bad
of the
thing
best.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had nice loose curls. That'd be fun. I just have very boring black straight hair.
Well, let's talk about the season in general a little bit. How would you compare this to past seasons?
It's very much its own thing, which
It's
I loved.
hugely different from the
Yeah.
the fact that it was so combatless. The characters were so much different. Just
There was an innocence to this one that we didn't have in the others.
yeah,
It was for me. It was kind of a breath of fresh air after season 2 because obviously I played a really big departure from what I like to play because
Careful about spoilers. Some people may be listening to this one before going back to season 2.
It's true.
That's true. Well, my character was basically straight up evil, and so
Yeah.
and so to play a system where there's this sense of goodness, this sense of innocence. I don't know. I feel like it'll always be its own special thing to me. I really enjoyed it, mainly because of you guys, because you guys are awesome.
No. Yeah, I definitely like the innocence and the different play on Minions and Misfits, where before it had been kind of common mobs and like grunts. Now it's much more like, oh, what about
Yeah, what if these were thrust in?
people who don't
what about
fit
the
in.
Wizard of Oz? Just people
Yeah.
that don't fit in, misfit toys, like just the cute little supporting cast to the missing child. And I thought it was very fun.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it kind of expanded our concept of what Minions Misfits could be, which really helped.
Yeah, it's really got me
Ooh.
thinking about like other potential just out of left field takes on the Minions and Misfits concept.
I agree.
But something I should have asked before to like, go straight down the Maze stream, but instead we're skipping around. Sam, what was some of your inspiration? You've already talked a little bit about how like Over the Garden Wall heavily inspired the Maze stream and the Maywood, but obviously this is much more summary. What all else that you haven't mentioned inspired the Maywood?
Well, I love summer. Some of the happiest times of my life is when I worked at a summer camp. And so, actually, me and Rebecca worked there together.
Yeah.
And so I always love summer. I love, the fireworks, the running around, everything. The camp was in the south, and so I really just loved everything about it. And so, when other people say their favorite seasons, for some reason, a lot of people say fall or spring, or even winter, and I'm always summer, and it's so easy.
What monster says winter?
I don't know. And so, again, when I came across this system, because I really loved Over the Garden Wall, I was like, what if we did this system? But the system, if you buy it, is built for kind of Halloween in the fall. And so I thought it'd be interesting to kind of twist it into the summer, because that's what I love. That's what I'm more passionate about. Especially like the kind of classic Americana, Route 66. kind of like all that good vintage stuff. I thought just is a really cool and iconic look. And so that was a really big influence. For me, one of my favorite feelings is something I developed when I was a kid was when we would visit I grew up in the North, and we would come down to see my grandma in Missouri. In the summers, I remember every time we would get out of the car for the first time and we would hear the cicadas and the heat of the warmth would hit you, and I've always loved that feeling. Again, I think a lot of, it's going to sound really sketchy and cliche, but a lot of me went into this season. I really,
that's just part of DMing, dude.
It's true. I think this more than any time else because it really, I played a system called the Quiet Year to create the world. So even the hollows and everything are created by me, and so all that stuff about summer and Over the Garden Wall, and then I also love the Tim Burton movie Big Fish, which is kind of hits this at several levels. The book by I think it's David or Daniel Wallace, one of the two, was a big influence. And it was, again, one of the other cool parts was I was able to play
Daniel Wallace.
Daniel Wallace. Okay, sweet. I was able to play all these really cool characters, which was really stretching my abilities in terms of the voices and stuff. And so, yeah, it will always have a really special place in my heart because I really just care deeply. Like, even the character of Karina, like, if you listen to it, you might think that I'm kind of haphazardly throwing her in there, but it's like it's based on somebody who I have like a deep compassion for. And
she felt very intentional.
Okay,
and
good.
Like,
it felt very real. Yeah.
Very real.
Yeah.
Kind of, in a way, like symbolizing the entrance into this much more real and dark parts of Muffin's heart, and of Jake and Puddles having to address that too, and they got to first help Karina, and I thought it was lovely.
Yeah.
And I think the last...
Guys, I'll be right back.
I think, I'm sorry, I'm monologuing, but I think, like...
That's what these are for.
That's what I just asked you to do, so continue.
I've been, like, waiting for this question, because I like...
You got me
poured so much of my heart into this.
As long as you're not just repeating the same thing over and over, just give us...
Yeah, we'll
keep
stop
telling
you
us
then.
new cool.
No, I think the only other part about it is there's also that light horror aspect of this season.
Yes.
And I've come to really...
Yeah, the most innocent and yet the most creepy.
Yeah, it's like it's the most... Yeah, you're exactly right. And Over the Garden Wall is the same way. And I've come recently, very recently, to enjoy kind of that light horror where it's not bloody, it's more about the mystery behind it.
It's gothic horror.
Yeah. And so it was really cool because there is this sweetness to the season, but there's also... It's spookier than any of our other seasons, too, which I think is really cool. And there's all about these different aspects of the unknown when it comes to the world and the lore in my mind that we only really touched on the surface of. And I really like that in a world where your mind fills in the gaps. I really enjoyed making it, and a lot of me went into it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as listeners and as players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
A
yeah,
plus.
definitely.
Good stuff.
Sam, were there any areas of the Maywood, any hollows that you made but didn't get to share that you'd like to share about now?
Yes and no. So I created the Maywood using a system called the Quiet Year, which if you've ever listened to the Adventure Zone, that's how they made the Ether Sea. And so several different pieces were included that we didn't touch on. Most of them we did. But for anyone who hasn't read through the system over the Garden Wall, Babes in the Woods 2nd edition, the map it gives you is like it has a big circle that represents the woods, and then a big squiggly line, and they lead to different hollows because there's the idea is we're gonna post up the picture of the map drawn by Emma B, and it's kind of a really good layout. But in reality, the May stream will take you wherever it wants you to go. You can't really navigate it. Which is why Quentin the Boatwright is such a pivotal role, because the only person who really knows how to navigate it is Quentin. But there was at one point in the May stream there's like a dam, but we didn't really go to that.
Oh yeah.
We touched on Mayfield, but really we kind of
skirted it a little bit.
We stealthed around it, which is fine. It worked out really well.
Didn't want to face a dentist.
No. Could have really put in that song from Little Shop of Horrors, and we totally missed that opportunity. There's also like a weird church type thing that I didn't even really develop very much, if I'm being honest, because I thought it'd be kind of weird to incorporate that a little bit, not really in the flavor of the season. And then I don't know.
Are there any NPCs that you had planned that you didn't get to use?
The dentist. I had this whole plan for you guys to be against the dentist and the mayor's wife who wanted to only eat healthy, and you were sneaking in snacks, but we kind of skirted that, which is fine. It worked out really cool.
It's fine.
Hank Boppet was totally improvised.
Forgot about
really?
Hank Boppet.
Oh man,
Love Hank Boppet.
I was like, oh gosh, they want to do this.
Every DM ever.
But it was,
Truly.
but it's that kind of cool. Like that's the magic of what we're doing here, and the magic of tabletop is that it creates these moments that are just completely organic. I think in the only other NPC that I can think of is in the Dwellings, which is where you met Sammy and Mr. Wilson, and is Puddle's home and kind of around the place that you guys started the adventure and then ended it. There is kind of a legend of a big old bad bear, but it just didn't. There wasn't really a place for it.
I saw that on the map, but I was wondering if that was artistic license or if that was something that you had actually planned but not used.
Everything she labeled on the map is part of my original blueprint for the May stream.
Nice.
Wow.
Cool.
And there's some parts of it that I'm open to explaining, and some parts that I think are kind of fun to just leave there.
Yeah, let the mystery be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I've talked a lot. But thank you for the question, because
I've asked you a lot of questions.
true.
And I'm going to ask you a few more, but I'm going to give you a second to rest your voice. While I ask Dillon and
Flips coin.
just going more general to tabletop RPGs and collaborative storytelling, how do you feel like, or what are some lessons you feel like you've learned or seen as a player from this season? Like how might you say like, oh, I think I've grown in this way? Or even just like, I saw this good principle
I brought this up
that
earlier,
I would recommend to other players to think about and to incorporate.
I brought this up earlier, but embrace failure as a player. Like, let that dice be a bad roll. It just happens, and it makes the story more interesting when you fail. There's a reason people don't like perfect paragons like Superman. Like, those stories are hard to tell. You have to fail.
I like Superman.
That's why
Get out.
That's why All-Star Superman is so good, because he has to fail by default.
Death of Superman, man. Great movie.
I would say one of the biggest things I took away from the season is the way Sam used us to help flesh out the world by voicing NPCs and basically being his scene partner at different points.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Not
I
something
definitely want to
seen much
incorporate
before.
that.
Yeah.
Something. Oh, hold on. There goes my
We got a
dog.
bork.
My sweet girl.
That's the big bear of the Maywood.
Her name is Parsley.
Spoilers.
I feel like I am a very bold, engaged, and excited player, and I often worry that I can hog the spotlight because I'm just like, oh, but this would be so cool, even with someone else's scene. And so I hope I definitely had to practice stepping back and waiting, and also figuring out how can I promote their moments.
I like that, though. I like, because my playing style is the exact opposite of that. I like having somebody who's peppy, engaged, that I can play the foil to.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
It's really interesting because my play style in my personal D&D group that I actually meet with is I'm the chaos gremlin in that group always. I'm the guy making crap happen. I'm forcing things to happen. So the DM loves me, the players do not. But I think it's interesting that it's different in this setting. I feel like I just kind of adapt to whatever's needed for the podcast there, because we'll have to see how it goes. But it very much is a different feel.
That's really cool that you've been able to step into different roles as a player and adapt and learn to look for that. It was especially cool on the finale. Spoiler for the finale of the season. You should really listen to that
heavy
before you
spoiler.
listen to the retrospective.
We're assuming if you listen to the retrospective, you'd listen to this season.
Yeah, it's one thing to spoil stuff that happens in other seasons that you may not have listened to yet, but you should probably have listened to all of season 3 before listening to this.
But getting to support Puddles in his moment of like going and really being courageous, and then having to use the self-control to not save Jake. Like obviously Muffin was like, can we fix him? But having to actively make that choice of no, we're letting it be a failure, and no, I'm not gonna go and like save Esther. Gonna let Jake. So for players who are like me and are really excited and really engaged, one, let this be a nice example for you that you're not annoying. But don't forget to let those failures happen, and see how you can like support the quieter players at the table. It's really fun. It's really
This is
good.
something I try to do as a DM, not as a player as much, but as a DM, I always try to, specifically if I notice like someone's getting like almost outshone or just kind of like doesn't have their opportunities to shine as much, I'll ask them specific questions directly as the character, to just try to get them in. But yeah, it's always interesting how that works out. But I think everyone also struggles with main character syndrome when you're playing a tabletop game, because you're all your own main character in this. Yet none of you are the main character.
I don't know.
You put a lot of work into your character, and the way that you feel about them is real, even if they aren't.
Although I feel like the way that we structured the show so far is we've had main characters. Like I feel like Israel is very much.
Yeah, well, this is more referring to general tabletop
that's true,
play.
Yeah. And it's okay if there's someone who's kind of like more the driving force. That can still be really fun.
I agree.
Yeah, that can be very helpful. In fact, yeah.
I think.
And in
Israel on season 2, I'd say. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, in a part of what I think the magic formula of this season is that it wasn't any one of us the whole time that was doing that. It shifted who was sort of motivating the actions of the party the whole time.
Yeah,
that's really true. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things about the finales. I feel like it really balanced that out perfectly. I think
so hard to do in a finale too. It just worked out so perfectly.
It's definitely one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. I'm very proud of it. I think one thing I've learned, and I said this in the finale, is if you read the book, which you totally should, you will notice that we did a lot of stuff wrong.
Very, very wrong.
But we still...
Or just forgotten.
Oh, yeah. But we still had a ton of fun. And so I want to encourage anyone who wants to, DM or GM, it's not about knowing everything. You want to know as much as you can. But, I mean, everyone's going to have to take pauses. I think that's something I've learned this season is being able to enjoy the pauses, because when you're a DM, you feel the need to always fill in the air. And I really enjoyed that this season there were moments where I could just sit back for 5 minutes while you guys did it, and that's a really satisfying feeling.
You're not going to always get it right. No. So just play it and have fun with it.
Show yourself grace.
Absolutely. Because we didn't do it all right.
And remember that it doesn't have to be perfect to have a good time with your friends. And keep that goal in mind, that the goal is to tell a story that you can all enjoy.
See, I would even say, because sorry, I'm not trying to call you out.
No, go ahead.
What I tell people who are going to run a game is, what is the DM's number one job? What is it? Do you know?
What would you say it is?
I would say, is my opinion.
What do you say?
Tell a story.
See, I would say, and again, it's totally subjective, but I would say that...
Yeah, this is where different styles come in. Yeah.
The DM's job is to make sure that everyone at the table is having fun.
You have a much nicer...
my answer was going to be to guide the players.
So it's
and I think it all, though, goes back to... like why we're here is to have a story we enjoy, whether that's through guiding the players, making sure the players get along. Like it looks in different ways, but ultimately we want to hang out with our friends. And we want to tell stories together. We love stories.
Yeah. I've also had the pleasure of being in a very, we'll say, mixed level group where some people are very, very experienced in whatever game we're playing. Some people, this is their first time. And that's always been the case for my groups. Like, it's always been an interesting mixture, which... You see a lot of cool dynamics with that. And so don't be scared if you haven't played before. People will help.
Let's transition to the end of our retrospective by looking forward spectrum. First, though, we like to talk about different systems here. We like to not just stick to old classic Dungeons and Dragons. What are some new systems that have been on y'all's radar? Just some that you're excited and want to plug, and maybe some that you think could really fit for this podcast.
Well, y'all know me. I'm a fan of the work of Chris McDowell. We played Into the Odd for the second season where I DM'd, and his new game, Mythic Bastionland, his medieval game of knightly adventures and questing, has been successfly kickstarted, and I backed it at the level to get a PDF copy of it. So obviously I'm super excited about that. I have yet to figure out how I'm going to fit it into our Minions and Misfits theme, but a knight doesn't go on a quest unless he feels like he doesn't belong where he is. So,
Well said.
But what does the knight's horse do?
That's a good question. Some of the knights have horses and some of them don't.
It's true.
Huh?
That's fair. There are two that have been really on my radar. One for the podcast, one for just playing. The one for the podcast is one we've discussed about doing, which is Glaze of Glory.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that one looks like
You're welcome.
Fun. Yeah.
Season 3 was almost
It was close.
Glades of Glory.
Glaze of Glory.
Glades of Glory.
Yeah.
Which, if I remember correctly, you play as squires for competing knights and try to kind of undermine different stuff going on. So it sounds like a lot of fun.
Each person plays the squire. Like, each person plays a squire, and their knight is the person next to them. If that makes sense. So you're
playing multiple characters. That's fun.
We need to do that at some point.
Yeah, that's definitely happening on the podcast at some point. The one for not the podcast, because I, for the life of me, cannot find a way to make it work with the podcast, is called Gubat Banwa, which is a Southeast Asian, specifically Filipino, war drama tabletop, which is very tactical. It's old mythology storytelling and like 4E tactics essentially.
Tactile top.
Podcast, but it looks really, really fun.
What you could do is you could take this really like the war drama and apply it to something that's not dramatic or warlike, and so it's like chefs in a kitchen.
The problem is the actual like play style is very much like you have to be like grid combat. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I followed the Kickstarter and I got the PDF and I'm waiting to get the book. But Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna do it at some point. I'm like
absolutely.
We got a lot of medieval content coming you guys' way.
Yeah, it's coming.
TTRPGs.
Casual.
The classic.
Oh yeah, but I'm very excited about that one. I really love Free League's The One Ring. I think it's awesome, and I'm like buying up all of the all of the stuff for it. I don't know how we would do it in Minions and Misfits.
Hobbits.
Halflings are the built-in misfits.
That's true.
The small, and stout of heart.
It's such a wonderfully built game, but it's not. I don't think it's built for. Actually, you can do a lot of humor in it. I played it with a lot of humor. So
everything's built for humor.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really love the game.
Lord of the Rings has some incredible moments of just you don't expect it humor.
Yeah.
I'm going to be reading Fellowship of the Ring, and
you want to talk about
serious
not built
and dramatic,
for humor?
and then suddenly Pippin's like, "Oh yeah, he's been like this all day."
Yeah, BT dubs.
What about sick and breakfast?
Not built for humor, Morkborg, not made for humor, and yet here we are.
Oh, it's true. But yeah, I love the One Ring and then the Monty Python RPG. I'm very excited about both of those.
Yeah.
There's another one that we've been talking about doing with the Western. What's that one called?
Oh yeah, Cam.
Frontier Scum.
That's the one.
Yeah,
That's another one I would
mentioned
really
it
love to
before.
do.
Yep, that's still on the list. Mothership is still on my list.
That's one of your favorite of all time.
Yep. There was another one.
Our lovely Cam here has made lots of content for Mothership.
And there's just the one content, the one published content.
It's a pretty big content, my man.
And another one, I don't know that I've brought it up before on mic, but it's a setting / game called Ultraviolet Grasslands.
We've talked about this personally. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast stuff.
It's by Luca Rejec, I think is how you pronounce their last name. Rejec.
Icelandic?
But it's if an acid rock album was an RPG.
Yes.
It's if you just go into YouTube, listen to the song "Colossal" by Wolfmother, and
That's the pod. That's
and
the
picture
that's
that as an RPG. It's like
That
Nice.
sounds excellent.
Luca has claimed inspirations like Wolfmother, I think Tame Impala, and then also games like
Quite a shift.
and then also games like Oregon Trail and
Oh, man.
things like that. Like basically the party members are caravanning across this vast and strange land and discovering all kinds of weird stuff along the way. But Luca wrote a system to go with it that's called Uranium Butterflies. That is a dense book. It's like trying to learn D&D from scratch. It's tough. So if we do that as a season, we'll probably be using the Ultraviolet Grasslands setting with a more rules light system.
I like
Well,
that,
some
like,
of the-
Cam, you're one of, like, the chillest and, like, meekest people I know. But you like these, like, heavy metal doomsday RPGs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. I contain multitudes. Oh, and
Let's say it in a Puddles voice.
I contain multitudes. Puddles is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Another quick one I want to shout out is another Into the Odd spin-off called Into the Bronze.
Ooh,
The Bronze Age RPG.
Oh, I'm into
It's
that.
basically just like an RPG set in Bronze Age Mesopotamia.
That sounds fascinating. I love historical stuff. I'm a sucker for anything anthropological, historical. Love it.
Oh yeah.
So the ones that I have really been interested in here
Yes.
recently, or just always, I'm constantly talking about Pendragon.
Oh, yeah.
Pendragon.
I want to play that with you.
I don't remember who it's by, but it's about you all
look this
play knights of Pendragon era England, but specifically you're going to play 3 different knights. Your first one, their heir, and then their heir.
Ooh.
As you play through pre-Arthur being born in the era of Uther, through Arthur departing and going over the sea, and it's very character driven, and like your character's changes and growth and your relationships, and I love that.
Is written by Greg Stafford and published by Chaosium, who publish Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, they're all the Cthulhu stuff. We love that.
I have to play Sir Robin. Like,
Brave Sir Robin.
Yeah, you've mentioned Pendragon before. I didn't know that whole generational aspect to it.
Yeah.
Which I really
Every
like
session
that.
is about a year. Maybe like 2 sessions might happen in a year. But it's definitely not very fitting for Minions and Misfits because every knight is an anime action hero. Anime and Pendragon have a lot in common, actually. Arthurian legend.
That's the problem with mini. What's it called? Mutants and Masterminds, a lovely tabletop RPG that I love for superhero stuff, but does not work for our genre. So
There's
Another one.
There's actually an element like that of time passing in leaps and bounds in Mythic Bastion Land that I think is going to be very interesting for the same reasons.
Nice.
oh wait, there is.
Another one.
Go ahead.
Oh, we are running out of time.
There are 2.
But did you have-
real fast? Wendy's published an RPG called Wendy's
Yes.
Feast of Legends, and then there's also
That one
one
is
that's
fun.
inspired by Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon called Wishing Well.
yes, that one I want.
That would be fun. Yeah, although that one was a little bit expensive, if I'm being honest.
Everything's expensive. It's
Everything's
RPGs.
expensive. But Wishing Well was cool, and I think I want to combine that with other systems. Feels like a nice light one that would be easy to like mix and blend.
Absolutely.
Like with this new system that I just missed the Kickstarter for called Wilderfeast. Very like Monster Hunter inspired, where you hunt and care for giant crazy monsters and eat them. And then you are like mutated based on what you ate. And I love exploring the themes of food and connection between people eating and between what we eat. I feel like in our society, we're very, our North American society, we are very disconnected from our food. I've heard that there's a lot of kids that don't even realize a chicken nugget comes from a chicken. And I think it's really important to know where our food comes from, and to respect what we eat and the land that grows it, and also to connect with each other as we eat. There's a lot of power to food, and I love that.
Amen.
Well said. Also, I have a host of like single page games, kind of like Honey Heist, that are just waiting to be made one shots. There's one called the Big Rock Candy Hex Crawl that I think would be perfect for us. There's one that I found recently called Ossuary that's literally like...
Oh, I've seen that one around. Yeah.
It's a single 8x10 sheet front and back, basically, worth of rules. Like you can just print it on one sheet of printer paper. But it's so compact and well written that it seems like it would be really fun to play.
Nice.
Well, the story is we need to play 1,000 games and we need 800 people to play them with.
Ooh, and Wilderfeast is published by, or will be published by, Horrible Guild. There's
excellent.
a quick start guide out now if anyone listening wants to check it out on their Kickstarter. I'm currently waiting to be able to get on the list for when they publish the whole book. But the last system I'll mention is called Good Society, written by Haley Gordon, and V. Hendro and Alex Robinson also helped in there, and illustrated by Raven Warner and Aviv Orr, published by Story Brewers Roleplaying. Lots of credits there. Good Society is a Jane Austen TTRPG system, focusing on all the very Austen-y things of secret desires and scandals and romance and all the shenanigans that come with a good society.
Oh, that's
lovely.
My wife just finished watching everything Bridgerton related, so I'll get to test how much of that I've gained by osmosis.
By proxy. There's a wonderful board game called Marrying Mr. Darcy, if you haven't played it, if you're into Austen stuff, that I highly recommend.
Ooh. Well, speaking of testing his Bridgerton Austen era knowledge, this is the system we're going to be using in our season 4, which I will be GMing, facilitating.
That's right. We brought her onto the staff and then immediately threw her into the DM.
Yes, they threw me. I didn't shove my way into the chair.
She's gone mad with power, everybody.
I've got to make more people play these RPGs. In this game, I'm not sure if we want to try to make it more of an Austen flavor era, or if we want to go more classic, because I'm thinking with this one, our players will be typical NPCs in a D&D starting town, the tavern keeper, the tanner, the captain of the watch, all very important people to themselves and their society, not so much to the obnoxious adventurers that are just running havoc through their town.
So
And we'll be focusing on all their interconnections, their passions, and their goals. That's the word I'm looking for.
I like that idea, but I also like if we were to play it Jane Austen, but from the perspective of like the British lower class who are just watching all of this happen from the outside, like we would watch like an episode of Real Housewives.
The problem is the system is focused on important people, or quote unquote important people.
Oh man, classism showing up.
Yep.
Dear diary, my mistress is crying because she can only afford 2 servants.
Yeah, the middlin'. They're not the nobility. They're not the kings and the queens and the dukes, but they're not the working class.
Start date.
Sounds
the
exciting.
Year
These are
1738. The queen spit on me because my clothes were 6 months out of date.
So yeah, we're still working out how exactly it's gonna look.
It'll come out soon-ish.
Yeah, in a couple weeks. We'll first be having a one-shot, our belated Life Day one-shot.
Happy Life Day.
Run by Sam.
Sam. It's a Lovecraftian, unpronounceable.
But yeah, be keeping your ears out. We're going to go back to every other week for a while, at least till we can build up some more content. Because, with all TTRPGs, scheduling is the ultimate
And
BBEG.
half of us are in school and working simultaneously, and yeah, it's a whole thing.
You know.
Yeah.
But we will
We'll
be
let you
back
guess which
with
half.
Life Day and a new season of A Very Good Society.
Ho ho.
We'll be back.
Thank you all so much for listening always. We could not do this without you. And if you ever vanish, we will be very sad because we can't do this anymore. And we all like doing this.
So thank you all so much. See you next time.
Woohoo!
Thank
Peace
you
out.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Cam here. Thanks for listening to Minions and Misfits. If you like what you heard, don't forget to check out our socials. The links are down in the description. And please, leave us a review on whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. It'll help us reach more people who can enjoy the episode that you just listened to. See you next time.